together to be able to address this issue. And we made historic investments in local law enforcement. You know, we invested over $50 million in the Baltimore City local law enforcement alone, that we were able to make sure we had a police force that was actually supported, that we're able to make sure we're investing in technologies and predictive analytics and both stopping crimes before it happens and also making sure that if someone commits a violent crime, particularly with a firearm, I want them in handcuffs in 24 hours. And we're able to work with our local jurisdictions, working with Mayor Scott, working with our county executives, working with our community groups and our violence intervention and violence interruption groups, because so much of the violence that we were seeing was retaliatory by nature. So you could actually stop that before the violence continued to escalate. That Maryland became one of the only states that actually helps to fund the U.S. attorney out of balance sheet. And so we're able to take a lot of these gun crimes and turn them into federal crimes. That we funded our state's attorneys and making sure we can increase the prosecution rates and increase the closure rates on violent crimes. And that has been the things that have helped to lead to the type of historic results where now Maryland is seeing amongst the fastest drops in violent crime amongst any state in the entire country. And we know we have more work to do. I will never be satisfied if there's one person who does not feel safe in their neighborhoods and their communities. But I can tell you right now, the way we do it is by partnership. The way you do it is by putting the authority back in and working with our local jurisdictions. And it's just ironic to me that it's Donald Trump and the Republican Party, the party of get big government out of our way, that are now the ones deciding to put millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars into doing something that is performative at best.
I'm old enough to remember, I can say I've worked in 2 White Houses and remember Democratic presidents working with Republican mayors in some cities, working even with Republican governors if they were willing, because that's how you have conversations about how to solve issues. I know you mentioned you'd be happy to talk to the White House. I cannot imagine they've taken you up on that, but have they taken you up on it? Have you heard from them or anyone there at all?
No, the only thing that we hear from the White House is actually telling us that we're on our own, and whether that's the White House cutting off supports for gun violence programs that were actually working, or where the federal government was helping to fund and support operations that were taking place within the state of Maryland, within Baltimore City, or whether it's the federal government when we're having historic floods, which, by the way, was something that I actually deployed our National Guard to be on standby when we had historic floods out in Western Maryland, where we had school children that had to get saved via boat from the second floor of their schoolhouse because the fourth floor was washed out, where we were some of the first boots on the ground, and where we put in a federal relief request for the federal government, and something that's never been turned down in the history of the state of Maryland. I became the first governor where we received a simple note saying support of Maryland is not warranted. And by the way, not a single state that did not vote for Donald Trump has gotten any federal relief or any federal disaster relief. So no, the White House has not reached out. But I want to be clear, if you reach out about mobilizing Maryland's National Guard, my answer to you is going to be very clear. If it is not mission aligned and if it's not mission critical, the answer is no.
You've made that abundantly clear. I think people have heard that part of it. I don't know if they listen. Let me ask you, before I let you go, I mean, right now there's just so much going on. Trump is trying to, as